The story begins with a 9-year-old boy named Temujin, who was given the responsibility of choosing a wife from a group of girls. His father advised him to choose a girl who was fair-skinned, healthy, had a broad face, and small eyes. But most importantly, the girl needed to have agile and strong legs, as his father believed that only a girl with strong legs could double her husband's happiness. Soon, Temujin found a girl he liked and brought her to his father. However, upon seeing the girl, his father was disappointed because he had hoped that Temujin would choose a girl from their enemy tribe, the Merkits. Such a marriage could have turned years of enmity into friendship. But Temujin had fallen for a girl from the smallest tribe, which caused some tension. Despite this, Temujin was happy with his new bride. Before leaving, he gifted the girl a piece of crow bone and promised to return in 5 years to marry her. As Temujin was returning with his father and their companions, they were caught in a fierce storm and had to take shelter in a cave. The Mongols believed that storms signified the gods' displeasure. After the storm passed, they resumed their journey but soon encountered a dangerous tribe. According to Mongol law, bloodshed near water was forbidden. Both sides stood watchful of each other, waiting for the other to make the first move. After some time, a man from the opposing tribe approached with a bowl of milk as a gesture of peace. In return, Temujin's father sent a cup of wine and a plate of dried meat. However, Temujin's father's companions were suspicious of the milk and suggested testing it on a slave first. But his father refused, showing trust by drinking the entire bowl in one go. Little did he know that the other tribe was treacherous. Shortly after resuming their journey, Temujin's father suddenly collapsed, poisoned, and died. One of their companions, an opportunistic man named Altan, laughed instead of grieving. Enraged, 9-year-old Temujin lashed out at him with his whip. But with his father's death, Altan soon rebelled and declared himself the tribe's leader. Temujin's mother tried to rally people to her side but failed. She warned Altan that Temujin would one day grow up to become the next Khan and avenge the betrayal. Among the Mongols, the title Khan was given to the king of all tribes, unrelated to the Muslim community. Hearing her warning, Altan decided that Temujin should not live to grow up. However, according to the rules, killing a child shorter than the wheel of a cart was considered a sin. Temujin was slightly shorter than the wheel and was spared, but Altan threatened to return in a few months to finish the job. To protect himself, Temujin set out on a difficult path toward a sacred mountain to seek divine protection. However, the bitter cold caused him to collapse unconscious on the snowy ground. Miraculously, another boy arrived and saved his life. The two boys became fast friends, bonding over shared stories, and performed a blood sacrifice to become blood brothers. Their shared goal was to rule the entire country and eventually conquer other lands. However, Temujin did not know that his blood brother, Jamukha, would later become his greatest rival. Not long after, Altan's men found Temujin and brought him back to the tribe. However, due to malnutrition, Temujin still hadn't grown taller than a cartwheel. Furious, Altan ordered the boy to be fed meat and fish until he grew stronger. Temujin silently watched Altan, but the seed of vengeance had already been planted in his heart. During heavy rainfall, the guards took shelter in their tents, giving Temujin the chance to escape. He ran non-stop with his chains still on and reached the sacred mountain. Bowing his head, he prayed sincerely for freedom from his chains. Soon, a wolf appeared, its piercing gaze seemingly assessing Temujin's soul. Unafraid, Temujin felt a divine intervention as his chains fell away on their own. Years passed, and Temujin grew into a strong young man. However, Altan still sought to kill him. Temujin managed to evade Altan, whose tribe was suffering under his cruel leadership. Determined to reclaim his rightful place, Temujin vowed to restore his tribe and its honor. But first, he had to fulfill his promise to marry his bride, Borte. When he returned to Borte, he had no home or wealth to offer her, but Borte still married him willingly. Despite his rugged appearance, Temujin would shy away when close to her. The two embarked on a long journey back to Temujin's tribe. Temujin's mother welcomed Borte warmly, adorning her with the family's ancestral necklace. Temujin gifted his precious fur coat from the dowry chest, completing their wedding. But as they were about to retire to their chambers, the Merkit tribe's leader and his men arrived, claiming Borte as their own. They argued that years ago, Temujin's mother had been taken from their tribe, and now they would take Borte to settle the score. Outnumbered, Temujin and Borte fled. However, Temujin was struck by an arrow, and to save his life, Borte whipped their horse to carry him to safety while surrendering herself to the Merkits. She was taken as the Merkit leader's wife. Desperate to rescue Borte, Temujin sought help from Jamuka, offering his precious fur coat as a gift. Jamuka initially refused, citing the Mongol law that forbade fighting for women. But after much persuasion, he agreed to help. However, Jamuka insisted on waiting to gather more soldiers, as he had recently become a leader and lacked support. Temujin had no choice but to wait. Months later, Temujin and Jamuka set out with their army to attack the Merkit tribe. As they approached through rocky terrain, Jamuka grew wary of an ambush, and his instincts proved correct. Hidden Merkit warriors launched a surprise attack. The Merkits, wearing skull masks, fought fiercely, but Jamuka's men held their ground. Amid the chaos, Jamuka drew his sword, slashing through enemies with deadly precision. Meanwhile, Temujin infiltrated the Merkit camp to find Borte. He discovered her, but she was pregnant, and there was no way to determine if the child was his. Nevertheless, Temujin embraced her and vowed to raise the child as his own. That evening, they celebrated their victory. Jamuka offered Temujin the position of his chief commander, but Temujin declined, focused on his ultimate goal of uniting all Mongol tribes. During the division of the spoils, Jamuka kept most of the wealth for himself, while Temujin distributed his share among his soldiers and the families of the fallen. This act of generosity won their hearts and solidified their loyalty. However, as they say, two lions cannot share one territory. The next morning, Jamuka discovered that Temujin had left without saying goodbye, taking two of Jamuka's best soldiers with him. Furious, Jamuka mounted his horse and set out in pursuit. Soon, when he reached Temujin's caravan, he asked why Temujin had left without saying anything and, most importantly, why he had taken his soldiers along. However, those who had voluntarily joined Temujin had no intention of going back, and Temujin had no plans to send them away. Seeing this, Jamuka's younger brother became furious and drew his knife to attack, but Jamuka stopped him and told him to remain calm. Although Jamuka was upset with Temujin's behavior, he let him go, marking the beginning of the animosity between the two brothers. Months passed, and one day, Jamuka's younger brother, seeking revenge against Temujin, infiltrated his camp. He went there to tend to Temujin's war horses, but suddenly, Temujin's soldiers shot arrows at him, killing him. When the soldier realized the gravity of his mistake, he went straight to Temujin, fell at his feet, and offered to cut off his own head and place it at Jamuka's feet to maintain peace between the two tribes. However, Temujin was unsure of what to do. His soldier had not acted intentionally. He was merely doing his job. Meanwhile, Temujin's wife reminded him that he had always served his people, but if he handed his soldier over to Jamuka, would the people still respect him? Hearing this, it was as if Temujin's eyes were opened. On the other side, when Altan heard about the death of Jamuka's brother, he fueled Jamuka's anger. Jamuka, burning with rage, vowed to avenge his brother's death. Soon, Altan allied with Jamuka and declared war against Temujin. For Temujin, protecting his people was now the top priority. He instructed the women, children, and elderly to move to safer locations. Before parting, Temujin's wife gave him a token of hers and prayed for his safe return. Now, Temujin's army faced an opposing force 20 times larger. Despite this, no one abandoned him. When Jamuka gave the signal, a fierce battle began. The enemy launched a massive attack on Temujin's forces, but they stood firm and fought back. However, gradually, Temujin's brothers began falling in battle right before his eyes. This ignited a fire within Temujin, but soon the enemy surrounded him completely, leading to the first and last defeat of his life. Ultimately, Jamuka, remembering their old brotherhood, spared Temujin's life but sold him as a slave to a merchant. Temujin, now a slave, was taken to the Xia dynasty's kingdom. When they crossed the border, the commander of that region recognized Temujin and decided to purchase him. At that moment, a Buddhist monk advised the commander not to buy him as a slave, stating that he was no ordinary man. However, the commander ignored the monk's advice and bought Temujin for merely 5 coins. Instead of killing him, the commander locked him in a dog cage and began torturing him. Little did the commander know that his mistake would eventually lead to the downfall of his entire kingdom. In that cage, Temujin was treated like an animal, mocked by the royal court. He was given meager food, worse than what the dogs were fed. Despite this, Temujin kept his composure, observing everything carefully with his small eyes. A priest witnessing all this approached Temujin, apologized, and requested that when Temujin attacked the kingdom in the future, he spare the temples. The priest knew what fate awaited the kingdom. Temujin said nothing, but handed the priest the token given by his wife, asking him to deliver it to her. The priest, driven by his faith, embarked on a long journey across the scorching desert. After traveling far, he succumbed to the heat and died just short of his destination. At that moment, Borte sensed something and set out with her child to search for Temujin. On the way, she found the priest's body holding the token, confirming that Temujin was still alive. She stopped the caravan and traveled with them toward the Xia dynasty's kingdom. Finally, after many years, Borte reunited with her husband. By this time, Temujin had become frail from starvation, and his skin, exposed to the elements, had turned rough like tree bark. Seeing him, Borte's eyes welled up with tears, but there was no time to cry. That night, she bribed the guards with silver coins and managed to secure Temujin's release. Eventually, Temujin returned to his homeland, praying for a better future. However, the land was no longer lush and fertile. Relentless battles in Mongolia had turned it barren. Once again, Temujin climbed the sacred mountain to pray for divine strength. There, he encountered the same wolf he had seen 10 years earlier. Temujin vowed before the wolf to create the world's greatest empire, a promise he fulfilled within a few years. Warriors from different regions joined him, forming an army of 10,000 soldiers. Now, Temujin posed the greatest threat to Jamukha. Although Jamukha's army was twice as large, Temujin showed no fear, confident that the gods were on his side. When Temujin's army unexpectedly retreated, Jamukha's forces pursued them, falling into Temujin's trap. Archers emerged from hiding and rained arrows upon Jamukha's troops, defeating one division in just 15 minutes. Enraged, Jamukha ordered a full assault, and his forces surged forward like a powerful wave. At that moment, two dark clouds merged in the sky. Temujin interpreted this as a divine sign. As his army advanced, the clouds thickened and thunder roared. The terrifying storm scattered Jamukha's army in fear. In the battlefield, only one warrior stood tall, Temujin. Drawing his sword, its dazzling light inspired his soldiers, who charged with renewed vigor, defeating the enemy. In the end, Temujin emerged victorious, becoming the ruler of the Mongol Empire. Contrary to tradition, instead of killing captured soldiers and slaves, he pardoned them and integrated them into his army. His compassion and new laws earned him the people's respect. Returning to his camp, Temujin encountered Jamukha. Despite everything, Temujin never considered Jamukha his enemy and released him. In 1206, at the age of 44, Temujin united the Mongol Empire. Leading an army of 300,000 soldiers, he launched campaigns against neighboring countries, building the largest empire in history. True to his promise to the priest, he spared the temples of the Xia dynasty. This is the story of Temujin, better known as Genghis Khan. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.